Welcome to Conscious Conversations, a place where East meets West, a place where conversations and ideas will challenge your minds, expand your consciousness, awaken your heart, and make you think more deeply about yourself and the world.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Conscious Conversations. I'm your host, Anthony Profeta, and I'm here with my good friend and co-host, Wes Gordon. How are you doing this week, Wes?
Doing very well. Good to be here.
It is. It's always good to be here with you and to be with everybody that's watching and listening. Had a sort of interesting week in terms of the last show,
yes.
Right?
We got banned. No way, on YouTube.
Can you believe it? Yeah. We got uploaded onto YouTube, and the conversation got banned in Russia. So we're infamous in Russia.
Wisdom and knowledge, not allowed in Russia.
Not allowed. I guess free thinking or something is going on.
Holy smokes.
Problem over there. But yeah, pretty interesting. I got a laugh out of that one. But today we're going to talk or have a conversation about this idea of it's been given different labels: a false self, a mask, the I, the ego. All these sort of different labels have been put on this idea of a self that we think we are in terms of relation to who and what we really are. Now, when we say this word I, we really have to contemplate and think about, is there someone or something that is really supportive of this pronoun I that we are using? Because when I think about this and contemplate these sort of things, many times the statements that we say, the opinions and the ideas and the dreams and fears that we share, they're really coming from someone and something that is not really very present to reality. So, for example, when I say, I think, I often question, well, who is the one that's thinking? Because are we really causing the thoughts to arise within our mind? There's a very common and well-known phrase by a philosopher, René Descartes, and it's cognito ergo sum, which means in Latin, I'm throwing out the Latin at you, which means I think, therefore I am. Now, if René was here today, I'd have him on our show.
Yes.
Because I'd like to question him in regards to that, because that statement, which has become a foundational and fundamental statement of Western philosophy, presupposes this idea that there is an I, that there is a thinker. Now, from my perspective, I believe that really the furthest René Descartes could actually state is that thinking is occurring. But I don't believe he could say, I am thinking. Because when I go into my meditations, and anyone I believe that practices meditation or mindfulness practice tries to get present clearly sees that when they're observing the mind seems to have a mind of its own. It's thinking any thought it wants to think. So you're sitting there and a thought of the past comes up, then it fades away, and then a thought of the future comes up, then it goes back to something that you were thinking about or something that happened 15, 20 years ago. And then it goes to think about plans you need to make next month or next week. And so there seems to be no rhyme or reason. And I ask, are we really thinking these thoughts? Are we really calling for them? What is your...
Right, you're talking about the monkey mind.
Yes.
That other part of you that never shuts up talking to you.
Always shattering.
Yeah, it's like the untethered soul talks about, Would you put up with a roommate that's always in your head constantly, la, 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 telling you all kinds of stuff that aren't actually true all the time? It's your fears. What about this? Be worried about that. You better double check this. I mean, would you put up with someone constantly hounding you like that? But you do in your head. Yeah.
And so who is that? What is that voice? Who is that voice? And are we really asking for these thoughts? Because if I ask you right now, Wes, is your next thought going to be positive or negative? Right. Could you really tell me prior to it arising in the mind? Or if I asked any of the listeners out there, your very next thought, is it going to be of the past or the future? You really couldn't tell me until it actually arose. And so are we really thinking these thoughts? Is there an I that's actually generating these thoughts? There's a big debate on where these thoughts do arise from, and no one really can say with 100% complete certainty. But what I've recognized is that, when I'm watching my mind and watching the thoughts that arise in there, there's thoughts that are what would we consider maybe positive thoughts, and then there's negative thoughts. There's thoughts about anger, and there's thoughts about frustration or worry or desires and all of these things. So if we are really the thinker, if I am thinking, then once I had a negative thought, would I ever want a negative thought again in my mind?
Well, that's what the untethered soul tries to point out: is who is that part of you that's listening to that voice?
Yes,
you're that part,
right?
And he brings that into focus through that book.
Yeah, and that's beautiful, because that's where I was going to be moving with this whole dialogue and conversation today, is that really you'll notice as you go deeper and deeper that there's these thoughts that are arising, but there's something else there that can witness the thoughts that are arising. And, even when we say, I want, who's the I that's wanting? Very often, we've been sort of conditioned or brainwashed by society, by advertisers, by corporations to want things.
Yes.
And they know very well how to work psychologically with our minds in order to get us to crave those things, so that we think we need this product or this item to be popular or to be wanted or to be loved or to be successful or in the in crowd. And so very often when we say, I want something, it's not really what we do want. It's what we've been conditioned to want. So this I, to me, many times, is more of a superficial sort of label that we put on a part of ourself that isn't the deepest aspect of the I that I'm saying that is our true self or our true nature.
You're talking about the ego. That's where you're headed. Okay.
Yes, you're very astute in where I'm going with this. But yes, there is in many traditions, they call it an ego, a false self, a fake self, a mask self that we sort of wear in this world, and that portrays itself through the wanting, through the I, me, mine, me sort of nature.
Yeah, but aren't you supposed to have a healthy ego? I mean, is there a spiritual ego and a psychological ego? Well, define that for me.
Well, again, I don't have all the answers, Wes, but my perspective is that this word ego sort of lost its true meaning during the time of Sigmund Freud. When I say true ego, I'm talking the spiritual ego. The spiritual sense of ego got lost when Sigmund Freud came into precedence, because he began to define things and talk about things in terms of the id, the ego, and the superego.
Right.
And now many people, when they talk about the ego, they're solely referring to the ego that Freud is referencing, which is sort of our individuality, our personality, in which there's nothing wrong with a healthy sense of self.
Okay.
But when it comes to the spiritual ego, they're referring to your selfish nature, the nature that only thinks about itself, the me, I, me, mine, I don't care about any of you, I just need all of this for me, because I'm the only one that's important. That self, spiritually, they're talking about your selfish nature, needs to be decreased, not given into every whim and aspect of what it desires, because we're not thinking in terms of a greater good. So that ego, the spiritual ego, would be your selfish nature, where the healthy ego would be just a healthy sense of who you are.
Okay.
So that's my perspective.
So how does that work with the higher self? Is that the super id, or?
I really have to go back and study Freud again, and I'm more of a Jungian, Jungian psychologist. But and I'm not a psychologist by any means, but I really gravitate and resonate more with Jung than I do with what Freud is, because according to Freud, everybody just wants to sleep with their mother and father.
Oh, Lord. Let's not go there.
But anyway, going back to the conversation at hand, so we need to think about the other things we say is I have a body or I have a mind. Well, who's the I that has the body, that has this mind? Who is this that we're talking about? So have we ever stopped to think, or have we ever stopped to contemplate, well, who is the I, or who am I? And within the Hindu tradition, was a very great, well-known, who was considered a very well-respected, realized master named Ramana Maharshi. And his famous way to transcendence was just to get his students and people to contemplate, who am I? And how that could be a very powerful tool to getting past the false self and diving deeper into the truth of the true self, getting past all the labels.
Which would be the higher self.
Yeah, the higher self. Because logically, we think if we link the I to the activity that we do, well, I'm a doctor, or I'm a teacher, or, I'm a mom, I'm a dad, that makes us realize who the I is. But that's just the activity or the role that we're playing in this incarnation, in this lifetime. The other thing we think is that logically, if we believe what our name is, that the name is the I. So, hi, I'm Anthony Profeta, and, I'm John Doe or Jane Doe or whatever, that's who we are. But again, that's just a label. Many traditions would say that the truth of who we are is beyond that label. The label is just something that we've been given by our mother and father when we were born into this incarnation. So we need to stop here and take a break at the moment. Sorry to, cut us off so short because I had so much more to say. But we will be back right after these messages to continue this conversation on who is this I or this false self in regards to the higher self.
10, 9, 8.
Why did the countdown stop? Because it's the countdown to Buzz TV channel 1098, Comcast Xfinity, and it's here. Local content for Sebastian, Vero, and Fort Pierce. Tune in for local info, happenings, and fun, including all the great Planet Vero TV shows from 8 to 10 a.m. and p.m. Dial in channel 1098 for Buzz TV on your Comcast Xfinity box and discover what the buzz is all about.
Hello, I'm Leslie Swan, Supervisor of Elections for Indian River County. Primary election day is Tuesday, August 18th, but you can vote early beginning August 8th through August 15th from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. at the Sebastian City Hall Council Chambers, the Supervisor of Elections Office, or the main library in Vero Beach. All polling sites have implemented the CDC's guidelines for the safety of our voters. Voters are encouraged to wear masks while voting. Visit voteindianriver.com for additional election information.
At Mattress Market, you don't have to spend a fortune to get a good night's sleep. Come in and find the perfect mattress for you. Choose from top brands as well as their exclusive luxury brand, Posh & Lavin. Come in today, sleep better tonight.
Discount prices, mymattressmarket.com.
Planet Vero Radio and TV will professionally produce your show and deploy your podcast to all major platforms. It's aired on local radio, too. Call Idea Garden, 772-778-2832.
Hey, Leah Waldos, and we are back bringing you your favorites by the beach. Drinks, delicious food, and of course, the best ocean view in Vero. Some things have changed with the times, but most importantly, we are here to serve you and get you out of the house. So come over to Waldo's, and as we always like to say, welcome home. Also, check out some great hotel deals with the Driftwood Resort. 2-night studio and get your 3rd night free. Waldo's in the Driftwood Resort would like to welcome you back and want to be part of your staycation destination.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Conscious Conversations. I'm Anthony Profeta, and I'm having a wonderful conversation with my co-host, Wes Gordon, in terms of this I that we think we are, what's sometimes labeled as the false self, the mask that we wear. And we were talking about how we throw all these labels, and we identify with the labels, like our name or our, the activity, like the job or whatever it is we do, the role that we play in this life. And we were just talking about, but there's a deeper aspect to that. And there's something that I love within the Zen tradition. In Zen Buddhism, some schools of Zen work with something called koans. Now, koans are sort of illogical statements or deep statements that help you to transcend conscious mind and go over into a, hopefully, realization of who and what you truly are. And one of their koans that they ask their meditators and their practitioners to think about is, what was your original face before you were conceived by your father and mother? So they sort of go back and try and think about that, meaning, the face that you're wearing right now is not who you really are. So try to find out deeper who the original face of that was. And really the discovery of that is not just the ultimate goal of Buddhism, it's the ultimate goal of mystical Christianity, of Judaism, of the Kabbalistic Jews, the Hasidic Jews, the Sufis, the Hindus, and everybody in between. So let's talk a little bit more about this idea of the I and this false self and the mask that we wear. I believe that, in my opinion, and the greatest and most widespread error is our identification with the limited self, the false self, this I that we think we are. And we go through life, they say, presenting this mask towards people or towards the world in general. And what I find interesting about that is this whole label that we do call ourselves called a person or persons. You know, this person, that person, or I'm a person. Do you know what the original meaning of person actually is, Wes?
No, you got me on that one.
All right, cool. So I find it very interesting because the word person, we use it so freely, but we have lost sight of where it originally came from and what its true meaning was. So person actually comes from the Latin persona. Now, persona comes from the ancient Greek and Roman plays, the dramas that they would perform on stage. And the persona was actually the mask that the actor would wear to play different parts. So person comes from that word persona, meaning mask or the fake character. And so we go through life calling ourselves persons, which subconsciously, deep in our conscious, we're saying that we're fake. We're wearing a mask. Okay. We're not really who we really are.
Right.
And so, you know, think about going to a play. When we go to a play, those of us going that are in the audience, we know we're going to see something that's fake. And we believe we're in this reality, and the actors on the stage are playing a part. They're playing a role. They're wearing a mask to play these characters. And we know that what's happening on the stage is not really real. Right. But a really good actor, he's so into his role that the greatest actors are the ones that pull us into their world, that have us sitting on the edge of the seats, that have us crying and laughing, to the extent that we believe that what's happening is actually real.
Right.
And so they're trying to pull us into that and make us believe that. And so they're very good and skillful at that. Now, basically, this is Hindu philosophy in a nutshell. Hindu philosophy says that we are all actors. We're all wearing masks in this role, in this play or drama of life. But the problem is we've become such good actors that we've become method actors. Do you know what the method actor is? The method actor is someone who actually studies the role so much. Like they go out, if they have to play a person, then they shadow the person. They learn everything about the person so that they become so consumed in that role that when they have to make a decision, they're thinking as that person would think. So what happens in terms of the Hindu philosophy is that we've come into this play of life. Yep. We're playing this drama, but we've become such good method actors that we've become consumed in this role. Right. And now we only identify with the mask of what we're wearing. So this mask of Anthony Profeta is what I am so identified with, and I truly believe that this is who I am. I've lost sight of the fact that I'm just the actor. I'm just the person or the persona wearing this false mask, and it's not truly who I am. And the ultimate goal is to realize that you are just playing a part.
Right. Absolutely. Because, that what you're describing keeps you finite or limited when actually you're a divine spiritual being unrealized. And that's the journey of coming back to that full realization. So it takes a lot of energy to put up this false front. How am I doing? Do you believe I'm Wes? I think I'm doing pretty good at it. But that's why I get so comfortable in spirituality or in the presence, because you can let all that down. Let it go. Hey, you are at your essence, your real self, and just this other part. So what?
We are, but the letting go of it for many people.
Come on.
Taking that mask off for many becomes a very scary and difficult thing. Because we are so identified that, you know, what seems so real, again, ultimately is not real, but it's very hard for many people to let go of that false identity.
Well, that would be your level of consciousness, the third dimension, they call it. It's real when you're in it, when you're in duality and limited. It's totally tangible.
Right.
But you're so much more than that, which some people call the fourth dimension.
Okay. And the realization that we are more than that, though, some people, though, might get this idea that we're too, and I don't want them to think that. It's more like there's no separation, really, between the false self and the true self. It's more like a thermometer. we just move up and down. And according to going back to the spiritual idea of the ego, it's just where you're living more selfishly, so a lower vibration.
Yes.
And all what we need to do, our true self is always there, but we need to raise that vibration to be living more selflessly. So from kindness and compassion, when we begin to live and choose to live, so it's a choice on how do we want to live. It's not that we're choosing to be one or the other, like in the sense of there's two options that we have. It's just where are we choosing to live from, a lower vibration or a higher vibration.
Well, the fruits of the finite self just lead to death, whereas the fruits of the spirit or the infinite self leads to more life, which eventually is eternal life, fully realized. And that's what all the masters are telling us. That's where this leads.
Yes.
You can choose. You have a choice which one you want to serve. You usually get so miserable with the other one that you bail eventually and say, hey, there's got to be a better way.
Right. And as Jesus said that, I've come to give you life more abundantly.
Yes.
And when we're choosing to live more from the true, authentic self, our life is much more abundant and much more full and much more, what we would probably say is blessed.
Yeah.
But this whole idea of this realization, of coming to the realization of who we truly are, is the ultimate goal, and it's just trying to learn how to take off or get away from that mask and come from your true self more regularly, on a more consistent basis. And within Buddhism, again, using Zen Buddhism, going back to that, for example, since I used the koan of, what was your original face, the spontaneous awakening to the realization of who and what you truly are is known in their tradition as Satori. And it's the awakening of your innermost self, what they would call your Buddha nature. And that's something that we're all trying to awaken to. And other traditions might call it self-realization or God realization. And it's just coming to know that there is a part of you that is actually content, perfect, and whole, and is true peace itself, love itself, kindness itself. But in order to truly get there and manifest that, the selfish nature has to sort of diminish.
And that's where the ego keeps pulling you back and wants you to become asleep again in the fear. Hey, don't go there, be small.
Yes,
so, yeah.
Because it always wants to sort of be in control. And the ego is sort of a control freak. It will pop up wherever it can. So even in spiritual practice, the false self and the ego will step in and, start saying, well, you meditate 2 hours a day. You're a very spiritual person.
Like that's going to,
compared to the other people who are only meditating like 15 minutes.
That's a slippery slope. You know about that fall thing, right? Pride, fall, boom,
So the ego will sort of pop up its head anywhere and any place it can. It's sort of like whack-a-mole. You know that game like the kids play? Well, the ego pops up and then you got to sort of like knock it back down. But then it will pop up somewhere else and you got to knock it back down again. And it just continually does that. And we got to learn to sort of like keep it in check in a way.
Got it.
Yeah, but
this is a big subject. We're going to have to talk about this more.
Yeah, I'd love to continue this conversation next week. But just to close, because we're just about out of time today, with a quote from another famous Indian teacher. His name was Swami Vivekananda. He was a follower of Ramakrishna. He said, the ego, the less there is of it, the nearer I am to that which I really am. And that's the true I, that inner I, that we were trying to talk a little bit about today.
Yes, absolutely.
So unfortunately, we are out of time now, but I truly appreciate all of you that were watching and listening. Please know that you can share any of your ideas, comments in the Conscious Conversations Facebook community and site. Yes. We look forward to continuing the conversations there. We look forward to your feedback on what you think in terms of the ego and the true self or the false self or the I and these masks that we wear. And we do thank you for tuning in today. We are always live streamed on Wednesdays on Facebook. You can also find us later on YouTube. And you can also find us every Sunday at 2:30 on Real 101.7, as well as Spotify, and I believe we are on iTunes now, but we do have to check that. So thank you all so much. We love you. We appreciate you. Have a blessed and beautiful day.